All right, so now that we've talked about slope-intercept form and we've graphed some lines, we're going to look at some other forms of equations. So today we're going to be looking at the standard form equations. Okay, so we're going to go through some notes here and make sure that if you are watching this video because you were absent or you needed a refresher, make sure that if you don't have a grade for this, these notes in class, make sure you watch the video, take notes, and post those to the Canvas assignment, please. But there will be a time for practice that will be attached to the Canvas assignment. So, hopefully after this lesson, you are able to understand the difference between slope-intercept form that we've been working with and a standard form equation. You've already seen the standard form a little bit, but just kind of giving you some more information here on standard form. And then hopefully you'll be able to graph from standard form, and then hopefully you'll be able to find the slope from standard form. Okay, so just a quick review here of slope-intercept form that we've already learned. So remember, that's y equals mx plus b, where that equation tells us the slope, the m, that number in front of x, and then it also tells us the y-intercept, which is the b there in the equation, and that would be where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so I want you to take a look at these three equations. What do you notice? Okay, so if you took a look at those three equations there, notice that x and y are on the same side. They are equal to a number, and there's some positives, there's some negatives, but it's in a complete different form than y equals mx plus b. Okay, all three of those equations are in standard form. So in standard form, we're going to see the x and the y on the same side together. Okay, and that standard form, you'll want to write this down, is ax plus by equals c. Okay, where a, b, and c are usually numbers. Remember, if there's not a number, it's a 1 or a negative 1. Okay, so just a few other things to remember about standard form. The x and the y are going to be on the same side of the equal sign. Okay, the exponent of each variable is 1, so there's not going to be any exponents there. It's an invisible 1. Okay, the variables are either going to be added or subtracted to equal that number. Okay, and there are no square roots or radicals in this equation. Okay, and every one of these standard form equations will make a linear graph, so it will make a line on a graph. Right, so you know, the question is, how do I find the slope from standard form? Okay, and so when I look at that, I'm like, I have no idea how to find the slope. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and solve the equation for y. I want to get it back to something that I actually already know about. Okay, so we're going to solve that equation for y. We've done some of that practice already in class, but when we solve this for y, we're going to be able to see how we can get that slope from the actual standard form and not have to rearrange. Okay, so if I take my 5x minus 2y equals to negative 10 here, make sure you're doing this on a piece of paper. This is part of the notes that I will want a picture of. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to use my inverse operations knowledge, so I'm going to take this 5x and subtract it to the other side. So I get negative 2y equals, these are not like terms over here, so I have to write them separately, so minus 5x minus 10. And now I can divide by negative 2 everywhere to get that slope-intercept form. So y equals, those two negatives would cancel to positives, so that's positive 5 over 2x, and then these two negatives make a positive, so that would be positive 5 if I divide that. So now that that's in slope-intercept form, I can see that my slope, m, equals 5/2. Okay, now take a look back up at that standard form equation. Do you notice anything? You should notice that the 5 and the 2 are already in the equation. However, there's a negative in there. Okay, So we can actually find the slope from standard form. I shouldn't have to do any of that reworking, right? So from standard form, in order to find the slope, it's the opposite, so the negative there, of A over B. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by this. So if I have this equation here, x plus y equals 9, I shouldn't have to rearrange it just to find that m in front of the x term. If I know that the slope is the opposite of A over B, okay, I know that A equals 1, B equals 1, because remember when there's not a number, those are 1, and here C equals 9. Well, I don't even need the C value. Okay, so I'm just looking at what number's in front of x and what number's in front of y. So m is going to equal the opposite, so the negative there, of A. My A is 1, and my B is 1 as well, and then I just simplify that. Negative 1 divided by 1 is negative 1. So my slope there is negative 1. Okay, let's look at some more. So again, the slope is the opposite of A over B, right, or negative A over B. So here I know that A equals 1 and B equals negative 2. So if I'm going to find the opposite of A over B, that means that that equals, remember that's the slope, it equals negative 1. So A was 1, but I have to put that negative there, and B was negative 2. If I simplify that, my slope is 1/2. So m equals 1/2. So the slope of that line is 1/2. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Again, I want to calculate that my slope is the opposite of A over B. Okay, well, A here is negative 3, B here is positive 3. So if I plug that into my formula here, or my information, negative, and then A is negative 3, and then B is positive 3. Okay, well, these two negatives are going to cancel and make a positive. So I really have 3 over 3, which 3 divided by 3 is 1. So my slope of this line is 1. Okay, one more here. Okay, so remember my slope is m equals the opposite of A over B. Okay, so for here, A is 3, B is negative 5. So I'm going to have negative, and then I'm going to put 3 since that's A, and then I'm going to put negative 5 for B on the bottom. If I simplify that, these negatives turn to positive, so my slope is 3/5. So the slope of that line is 3/5. Again, I hope you noticed that as we're working through these, it's those coefficients or those numbers in front of x and y, and you're just taking the opposite of them. Okay, so now that we have talked about how to find the slope, I'm going to go into how do we graph from standard form. Okay, so if I'm given this 5x minus 2y equals negative 10, I know I can find the slope now. The question is, how in the world do I know where to start on my graph? Okay, so what we're going to want to do is we want to find the x-intercept, which is where the line crosses the x-axis. Okay, and for that, the y value is always 0. Okay, so the ordered pair will be a number for x and then y for 0. Okay, and so you can say here y equals 0. Okay, we also want to find the y-intercept, and that's where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so for the ordered pair, you would have x equal to 0 all the time, and then there will be a number for the y value. Okay, so for example, if I go ahead and graph this equation here, okay, you know, so up here, if I'm looking at this 5x minus 2y equals negative 10, for the x-intercept, if y is 0, you know, I pretty much get rid of that negative 2y, and then I solve for x. So if I have, you know, 5x minus 2y equals negative 10, you know, if this is 0 right here, that's not going to be anything. So I just have this 5x equals negative 10. So I divide by 5, and I get x equals negative 2. So my ordered pair would be negative 2, 0. Okay, so you can see here that my x-intercept on the graph is at negative 2, 0 right here. Okay, that that's circled in green, okay? My y-intercept then is the opposite. I take that 5x minus 2y equals negative 10, and this time, if I'm looking for the y value, that means that the x is 0. I have nothing to do with the x, so this is gone, and now I want to solve for y, so I'm going to divide by negative 2, and I get y equals 5. So the ordered pair for my y-intercept would be 0, 5. And again, if you look on my graph here, if I plot 0, that means I don't go anything left or right, and then I go up 5, and that is the y-intercept on the graph there, circled in yellow. Okay, so I can just plot those 2 points, draw a line through them, put the arrows on the ends of my line, and I have graphed my standard form equation. I don't even need to find the slope. I can just find the x and the y-intercept. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here at a few more. Okay. So if I'm given x minus 2y equals 10 and I want to graph that, okay, I want to find the x-intercept, which means plug in 0 for y. So I'm going to have x minus 2 times 0 equals 10. Again, 0 times this 2 means nothing, so it's gone. So I have x equals 10. So my x-intercept is 10, 0. Okay. If I find my y-intercept, I'm going to take my equation, x minus 2y equals 10, and I'm going to plug in 0 for x. I'm finding the y-intercept, so the x is just out of the picture. So if I plug in 0 here, that's gone. Okay? And then I divide by negative 2 to find my y value, my y-intercept, so y equals negative 5. So my ordered pair would be 0, negative 5. And now I can go ahead and plot those points. Okay, so if I go to graph 10, 0, I look at my graph and I'm like, oh, it doesn't go to 10 on the x-axis. So it's not going to fit on there. So I'm going to skip that for right now. And then I'm going to graph the 0, negative 5. So for the y-intercept 0, I don't go anything left to right, and I go down 5. Okay, so I'm going to plot that point there. Okay. Now I'm like, how in the world do I get another point? Where I can now, because I know how to find the slope of that equation, I can go find the slope and get my next point. So remember, m equals the opposite of a over b, okay? Well, a here is 1, b here is negative 2, so that's going to be negative 1 over negative 2, which is positive 1/2. So now from my y-intercept on my graph, I can go up 1 over 2. Okay, I can go up 1 over 2. It's not letting me put these points. There we go. Up 1 over 2, and I can now draw my line of that standard form equation. Now, normally I make you put 3 dots on the line to make sure you have a good solid line. You can do more than that, but please try to make sure that you have 3 points if you're using the slope. If you're using the x and y-intercept, you can just plot those two and be done. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at another one here. Okay, so if I have 6x minus 3y equals negative 18, again, I want to find the x and the y-intercept and see if they fit on the graph so that I can plot this line. I can graph this standard form equation. So if I have 6x minus 3y equals negative 18, if I'm finding the x-intercept, remember the y doesn't have anything to do with it. So really I can just cross that part off. And now I have 6x equals negative 18. So to solve for x, I just divide by 6 and I get x equals negative 3. So the ordered pair for my x-intercept is negative 3. That's where the x goes, and 0 because the y had nothing to do with it. Okay, now I'm going to find the y-intercept. So I'm going to rewrite my equation here. 6x minus 3y equals negative 18. And again, if I'm finding the y, the x has nothing to do with it. So I'm going to just cross that out. X would equal 0, so that would be 0. Now I'm going to divide by negative 3, and I get y equals 6. So the ordered pair for my y-intercept is 0, because the x didn't have anything to do with it, and then the y value was 6. So now I'm going to go ahead and plot those on my graph here. So the x-intercept was negative 3, 0. So from the center, that means I go left 3, and then I don't go up or down anything. So right there is my x-intercept. My y-intercept is 0, 6. So that 0 means I don't go anything left to right, and then I go up 6. So right there would be my y-intercept. And now that I have those 2 points, I can draw a line and put my arrows, and there is the line for that standard form equation. Okay. All right, I want you to go ahead and try number 4 and 5 on your paper. Okay. If you don't have the paper, then there's the equations. Try to find the x and the y-intercept and graph that. Go ahead and pause the video, and then you should be able to check your answers once you're done, because I'll go ahead and put the answers on this. But then after you see the answers for this and see how to do that, then there is a practice sheet attached on the Canvas assignment that you can do some more practice with finding the x and y intercepts and being able to graph in standard form. Now remember, if you do not like graphing in standard form, you can always change this back to slope-intercept form by solving for y and then graphing that from slope-intercept form, which some students do prefer. But you can simply just find the x-intercept, the y-intercept, plot those, and be done. All right, so if you pause the video and now you're coming back to find out what the answers are here, okay, if I'm finding the x-intercept here, okay, remember that means there's going to be a number for x, but it's going to be 0 for y. And then if I'm finding the y-intercept, it's going to be 0 for x, and then I will have a number for y. Okay, so for the x-intercept, I would have 6x. That 3y isn't going to mean anything, so that equals -18. So I divide by 6, and I get x equals -3. So in my ordered pair over here, the x-intercept is -3, 0. Okay, for the y-intercept, remember it doesn't have anything to do with the x, so I'm just going to have the 3y equals -18, divide by 3, and I get y equals -6. So my ordered pair for my y-intercept is 0, -6. So now I can go ahead and plot those points. So for the x-intercept, I go left 3 since it's -3, and I do not go up or down anything. So right there is my x-intercept. Okay. For my y-intercept, 0, so I don't go anything left to right, and then I go down 6 because it says -6. And right there would be my y-intercept. So now that I have those 2 points, I can draw my line and put arrows on the end of it. Okay, so there's number 4 from the notes page. Okay, the second one, number 5 here, I'm going to go ahead and find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Okay, so remember for the x-intercept, I will get a number for x, but there won't be anything for y. So I can just say that I have x equals 14. Well, that's already solved for x. So my x-intercept is 14, 0. Okay, now I know from that number that's not on the graph that I'm going to have to find the slope for this one. So let's go ahead and find the y-intercept then. So remember for the y-intercept, x is going to be 0, and then there'll be a number for y. So I can leave the x out of my equation and just write -2y equals 14. And solve for y by dividing by -2, so I get y equals -7. Okay, and that one should fit on the graph. So my y-intercept is 0, -7. So from the center, 0 means I don't go anything left to right, and then I go down 7 for the -7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it just fits at the very bottom there. Okay, so I have -7 down here at the bottom. Okay, so now, yeah, I mean that 14, 0 isn't going to fit on the graph. So I want to go ahead and find the slope. Okay, well the slope, remember, is the opposite of a over b. And if I go back to my equation, a equals 1 and b equals -2. So I'm going to have -1 over -2, which is, the slope then is +1/2. So from my y-intercept, I'm going to follow that rise and that run. So I'm going to go up 1 over 2. If it lets me put it. Okay, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. Okay, and so there I have several dots there that help me get my line. So there is the line for that x minus 2y equals 14. Okay, so hopefully that helps kind of have you know some things about standard form. Again, there is some practice, and we have seen standard form. You will see standard form. This is probably the form that's used the most, like common besides y equals mx plus b, but it's not easy to write an equation in this form, but it is easy to go ahead and graph and find the slope. Okay, so go ahead and work on that practice. Make sure you post a picture of your notes to get those points for this video. Okay, so just a quick reminder then. So we know slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, that it gives us the slope and the y-intercept. And now we know standard form is that ax plus by equals c, where we can find the x-intercept, the y-intercept, and the slope from that equation without having to rearrange that equation. Okay? All right, so again, find the practice and see if you can continue